Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today we're going to read another amazing lecture from Dr. Joseph Murphy. I have found that the lectures are sometimes even better than the books. He had a different way of speaking when he gave his lectures. We've read some amazing lectures recently, including The Wealth Mindset. And now we are going to read All the World Believes a Lie. I really like this one. It's classic Murphy all the way through. Joseph Murphy was an amazing New Thought author and speaker, born in 1898 in Ireland, moved to the United States at the same time as Neville Goddard, was trained with the same mentor as Neville Goddard, Abdullah. He was a minister of a church he started called the Church of Divine Science, and spoke at the Wilshire Ebel Theater very much just like Neville Goddard did. There's so many parallels. It's fascinating because Neville Goddard spoke at the Wilshire Ebel all the time. He had a weekly radio talk show. I have never heard any of his radio talks. I need to find one because I bet those are super fascinating. I guess there's the 78 RPM discs of him talking you can find somewhere out there. But he spoke about the subconscious mind, and using this powerful understanding of the Bible, he addressed major and significant issues like hurt feelings and wealth and health, pretty much everything that you can think of a spiritual nature. And it's all very unique and powerful. And you know it's Joseph Murphy because of the powerful message. All the World Believes a Lie by Dr. Joseph Murphy. All the world believes a lie, so when I am telling the truth, it thinks I am telling a lie. Who said that? The greatest healer America has ever known, Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, in 1847. He was a marvelous healer, and that is one of his favorite statements. What is that lie? Well, the great lie, of course, is that external things are causative. The scientific thinker, the man who thinks, who has any sense at all, will not give power to the phenomenalistic world. The phenomenalistic world is an effect. It's not a cause. The scientific thinker gives power to the creator, to the created thing. The infinite presence and power is within you. I am the Lord that healeth thee. So the miraculous healing power is within you. It's one power. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one. One power. Not two or three or 1,000, just one. Mathematically, scientifically, spiritually, there can be only one power. If there were two powers, one would cancel out the other. There would be chaos everywhere. There would be no order, symmetry, or proportion of the universe. There would be a clash of wills. So that would be absurd. There's only one power, so externals are not causative. There are people who think that the night air gives them a cold or pneumonia. The night air is oxygen and nitrogen, helium, and some other gases. It's innocuous, it's harmless. The night air never said, I'll give you a chill or a cold or the sniffles or pneumonia. There are people who believe if their feet get wet, as I was taught when I was a boy, oh, you'll get a cold now, or you'll get a very bad cold. You may get pneumonia because your feet were wet. The water is made of H2O, it's hydrogen and oxygen, it's harmless. The water can't give you a cold or pneumonia or a chill or the sniffles. Some others say, if someone sneezes, oh, I'm going to catch a cold. Well, to sneeze is simply God's alarm system within you to bring it all to balance. It brings a balance in your body. If you're in a warm room and you go out into the cold atmosphere, you may sneeze. Nature seeks a balance. Just like you are born with two fears, the fear of falling and the fear of noise. That's God's alarm system in you. You're walking down the road and a car is coming along. It toots a horn. You step aside. You're free from your fear. So the law is, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The way you think and feel, so are you. Your thought and feeling creates your destiny. Your heart is your subconscious mind, and whatever you impress upon that subconscious mind comes forth as form, function, experience, and event. You're not subject to forces outside yourself. These are creative things. You don't give power to men, women, and children, to the sun, to the moon, and the stars. God created all these things. Stars are molecules moving in space. They're molecular, just like your body is waves of light. The planets are harmless, therefore you don't give power to external things. You're told there's nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. That's an absolute truth. Some people say strawberries give me hives. If that were true, everybody in the world who ate strawberries would get hives, but they don't. That person has made a law for himself. He has a bad relationship with strawberries. When he says strawberries give me hives, that's a command to his subconscious mind. Of course, when he eats strawberries, the subconscious sees the strawberries coming down and says, the boss wants hives. So it proceeds to give you hives. These are laws you make for yourself, or you might say, I can't eat mushrooms. I get acute indigestion. That is a law you made for yourself. Millions of people eat mushrooms and they don't get indigestion. You see, if it were a law, everybody in the world would suffer accordingly. So don't judge according to appearances. The five senses report an avalanche of sights and sounds and sundry concepts, good and bad, but you're not a victim of the five senses. You can reject what you see, what you hear. You can see peace where there is discord, love where there is hatred, joy where there is sadness, light where there is darkness, life where there is so-called death. You can discipline your senses, and you can taste the sweet savor of God. Taste the truth, like you taste an apple. Judge not according to appearances. You are here to separate the sheep from the goats, the false from the real. Some people say that ragweed gives them asthma or hay fever. If that were true, if that were a cosmic law, everybody in the world who touched ragweed would cry. Eyes would begin to tear. They'd get inflammation in their mucosa or paroxysmal attacks. It's the same thing as when a person says they're sensitive to red roses or allergic to red roses. If you hypnotized that person and put a glass of distilled water under his nose and said, this is a red rose, he'd get all the symptoms right there in front of you. But it is still distilled water. Now tell me honestly, where is the allergy? Is it in his mind, a belief? Surely it isn't in the distilled water. He's probably allergic to his wife, or to his boss, or someone on the next bench. Don't you know that ragweed and the pollen and all these things are the same substance that are in your own bloodstream? There's only one substance, God. God is the only presence, power, cause, and substance. Everything is spirit made manifest. So the ragweed, or whatever you call it, the pollen or the dust, all these are of God. Everything is spirit made manifest, for there is a spirit and matter. Matter is the lowest degree of spirit, and spirit is the highest degree of matter. They're incontrovertible, interchangeable. They're the same thing. I visited Dr. Viktor Frankl in Vienna some years ago. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He practiced what is called logotherapy. He's a medical doctor and a distinguished psychiatrist. He had been imprisoned with other doctors in Auschwitz. He said we were anxious to know what would happen, what would be the consequence. For example, they had to stand out in the open air. They took a shower, they had no clothes on. They were given a towel or anything at all. It was late autumn, the weather was very cold, and they stood stark naked and still wet from the showers. In the next few days, our curiosity evolved into surprise, he told me. We were surprised that we didn't catch cold. There were many similar surprises in store for the new arrivals. The medical men among us learned first that the textbooks tell lies, he said. They were angry because the textbooks told lies. They didn't get a cold. They didn't get pneumonia. Somewhere it is said that man cannot exist without sleep for more than a certain stated number of hours. That is quite wrong. I'd been convinced there were certain things I just could not do, that I couldn't sleep without this, or I couldn't live without that or the other. We slept in beds which were constructed in tiers. On each tier, measuring about 6.5 to 8 feet, slept 9 bed directly on the boards. 2 blankets were shared by each 9 men. We would of course lie on our sides, crowded and huddled against each other, which had some advantages because of the bitter cold. Though it was forbidden to take shoes up to the bunk, some people did use them secretly as pillows, in spite of the fact they were caked with mud. Now, I would like to mention a few similar surprises how much we could endure. We were unable to clean our teeth, yet in spite of that and a severe vitamin deficiency, we had healthier gums than ever before. We had to wear the same shirts for half a year until they had lost all appearance of being shirts. For days, we were unable to wash, even partially, because of frozen water pipes, and yet the sores and abrasions on our hands, which were dirty from work in the soil, did not separate. That is, unless there was frostbite. If someone had asked us for the truth of the statement that flatly denies man as a being who can get used to anything, we would reply, yes, a man can get used to anything, but do not ask us how. Our psychological investigations have not taken us that far yet. Neither had we prisoners reached that point. Don't ask us how, because the ways of the infinite are past finding out. They were all doctors, and according to the textbook, they should all get pneumonia, but they didn't. Nobody died. They were in a higher state of mind, dwelling in a higher level of consciousness. Dr. Fleet of London told me that during the war, she was on a starch diet. She couldn't get the things she was accustomed to. Other people were on starch diets. She said neurotics and psychotics, they performed marvelous things during the war. Under the pressure of the war, they became calm. They administered to people, and all of them. And she said we had no vitamins and our diet was contrary to all science, all scientific findings, and we were healthier than ever before. This was the same thing the doctor found out. We are not victims of the weather. A lot of people are deceived. Frederick L. Rawson, a great scientist in scientific prayer, spoke about a student of his who had a clairvoyant vision. She saw a plane on fire in her dream, and she and another woman went to pray in the area where she saw it. Lo and behold, they saw the plane come down, but they contemplated a presence of love and peace and harmony and beauty and right action in their minds and hearts. They were immersed in the whole omnipresence. The plane came down, but these men were not burned. It was on fire. They were in a blazing furnace, but in the higher levels of your mind, you can't be burned. They proved it. Surely fire burns, yes, but not at higher levels. When you tune into the infinite and reach the highest state of consciousness, you are immune. Neither does cancer have to kill you. If the person decides that he can ascend in consciousness, definitely believe he will be healed. The psychic who appeared this story died just a few years ago. Not many people know about Virginia Graham's success in her famous TV show Girl Talk, a show that came after she beat terminal cancer and made medical history. Her doctor explained the miracle Virginia experienced in these words: she purified her bloodstream with her thoughts. Actually, this came about as a result of Virginia's fervent prayers when she knew she would be healed and would live. I have a surviving point of view, she claimed. I am not interested in sinking or floating. This love of life communicates itself, and probably one of the reasons her TV show climbed to the top. These great truths are there, of course. In the clairvoyant vision, she saw this airplane come out of the clouds in flames. It burned out about 100 feet from the ground, then cracked and fell. She looked about to see what the men were like. She couldn't distinguish anything about them. They were burned to a cinder in the dream. When the two women stood there praying, the airplane came out of flame, burned and cracked, just as she had seen. There were 2 men in it, but they were absolutely untouched. It was like the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the Bible. One of the men said, I was about to throw myself out of the plane when suddenly a sense of absolute peace and safety came, and I sat back in the machine. There he was in a furnace. The man turned out to be the son of the lady she had asked to come help her. Down through the ages, Indian fakirs have walked through fire under controlled conditions. Clifton Pierce, the research scholar, pointed out in his writings that in Surrey, England in 1936, the English Society for Psychical Research ran a series of tests on 2 Indian fakirs, imported expressly for that purpose. The tests were graded by doctors, chemists, physicists, and psychologists at Oxford. The Indians walked the fire under controlled conditions. Under the skeptical eyes of science, no chemicals were used, no preparations made. They repeated the performance under a variety of conditions over a period of several weeks. Surface temperatures were between 450 and 500 degrees centigrade. The interior temperature 1400 degrees centigrade. There's no trickery or hallucination. These examples are very common, of course. And what Quimby wanted to bring out years ago was that sickness was of the mind. He said people contracted their infection in the church. They were given a guilt complex and fear that made them sick. He had to teach them a God of love because they had a belief in a punitive God, that God was punishing them. For example, suppose a part of your body was severed, a limb or an arm put on a shelf. It couldn't catch cancer, tuberculosis, arthritis, ringworm, or any disease. Why? It is separated from the mind. It undergoes dissolution. Dissolution is not a disease. It's a matter of phenomenon. Here were these doctors out in the evening in freezing temperatures, and yet they didn't catch a cold. They were supposed to get pneumonia, but because their minds were elsewhere in the higher state of mind, they had wounds, they had open lesions, but they failed to suppurate, even though they were dirty. The Indian fakir sleeps on a bed of nails because he's been hypnotized and told that whenever he pronounces a certain word, he can throw himself on a bed of nails and it will not penetrate the skin. I've seen that. You have to, probably. That's a conditioning process. In 600 BC, Lao Tzu said that when the sage goes forth into the jungle, he carries no sword or spear. He is not afraid of a javelin or the horn of a rhinoceros because there is no place in him where these can enter. In other words, he's built up an immunity. He's become intoxicated or seized by the divine antibody. So the externals are not causative, but man can make them a cause, and that's the great lie. That external things are causative. They are not. Our eyes deceive us frequently. We see the sun, the moon, and the stars as well as each other by means of our eyes, which function in a manner similar to a camera, but don't judge according to appearances. Your five senses bring you an avalanche of sights and sounds and sundry concepts, most of which are negative. Are you governed by your five senses during the day? Predictions of doom and gloom? Do you know when they mentioned the two vice presidents' wives had cancer? Doctors told me that hundreds of women flocked to their offices out of fear. That's why Quimby said, fear is behind this disease. They create the disease. You tell a man who's never heard of the word cancer that he has cancer. It has no effect whatever upon him. But as Quimby pointed out, you tell a man who's heard all the ravages of cancer, look at this little lump, maybe it's a harmless lump. Maybe he fell down, maybe he hurt himself, but you tell him it's cancer, malignant evil, he'll go home and he'll make it so. Fear in his mind makes it so. That which I greatly feared has come upon me. So don't judge according to appearances. Physiologists tell us that when, for example, we look at a tree, its inverted images are reflected on the retina of our eyes, which transmit the picture to the brain centers in turn. These reactions are called visual impressions. The physiologist says that we see with the brain. You know what you see with your mind. You see with your eyes closed. You can see your mother if you close your eyes now. You can see colors better when your eyes are closed. Vision is spiritual, eternal, indestructible. You see in your dreams. The faculty of clairvoyance is in all of us, though more highly developed in some. You're frequently deceived by what you look at. For example, a stick inserted in water appears broken. It isn't. When you stand on a railroad track, the two parallel lines of the rails seem to come together in the distance. White figures seem to be larger than black ones. Your eye deceives you. Your eye often misrepresents the true state of existence because it deals only with surface appearance. People say the sun rises and the sun sets. Actually, it neither rises nor sets. We see nothing as it is in reality because our eyes are geared to see according to our beliefs. If our eyes were geared in any other way, we would see things differently. An airplane seems to move in a straight line. In reality, it follows a geometric arc. The razor blade with which you shave seems very sharp and straight. Yet when seen under a microscope, it is a wavy line. It is not solid at all. A piece of steel seems solid, yet scientists point out that X-rays reveal it to be porous, just like a body. That in reality, it is made up of trillions of animated miniature universes, each having an extraordinarily rapid movement, yet no physical contact with each other. If you looked at a photograph of your mother with a magnifying glass, her face would look like a succession of gray, black, and white points, depending on whether the paper is black, gray, or white. The portrait of your mother disappears. It only existed before your eyes were geared to a three-dimensional level. You saw it on a scale of your accustomed observation. Looking at the razor blade with the eyes of science, we see electrons in perpetual motion that travel at the rate of several thousand miles per second. Let's say you believe the stars are jinxed, that they're malignant or malefic, based on their configuration in the sky. Yet God pronounced everything He made and said, "It's good." It isn't the stars, it's your belief. As Quimby brought out, it's not the external thing. You're making an external thing a cause, but nothing's good or bad. Only thinking makes it so. You made that law for yourself. Let's say your sister was born a second before you were, and you are identical twins. She's taken up the study of the science of mind, and she's leading a marvelous and wonderful life while you're suffering from your belief in malefic configurations of the planets, and things are going upside down for you. Everything is going wrong because of that belief. Because whether you're consciously thinking of it or not, whatever you believe in your subconscious, it brings it about. So it's a very dangerous thing to think that the planets are working against you. You made that belief. You're making an external thing a cause. The whole world believes a lie, Quimby said. When I tell them the truth, they think I'm telling them a lie. They think God up there is punishing them. The life principle can't punish you. It forgives you. You burn yourself, it forgives you. Gives you new skin and tissue. If you cut yourself, it forms thrombin, gives you new skin. It always seeks to heal. The infinite cannot punish you. Its eyes are too pure to behold iniquity. God is the eternal now. Now is the day of salvation. You're not a victim of karma, nor are you a victim of the past. Because you're dealing with a timeless, faceless being, there's no past to worry about. The past is dead. Nothing matters but this moment. Change this moment, and you change your destiny. Your beginning is a new end. The new beginning is when you enthrone godlike ideas in your mind and live with them. The future is your present thinking grown up, and then the desert of your life will rejoice and blossom as the rose. That is the good news, the gospel, the truth, the being. You change your mind now, and the martyr can be changed in the twinkling of an eye. We punish ourselves for our misuse of law. Your five senses bring reports to you from the outside world which are not always true, but are oftentimes harmful and destructive. Parts that you emotionalize, accept as true, enter into your subconscious, and produce effects on your body and affairs according to thy nature. There was a young man who believed a lie. He was gradually going blind. His doctor told him to leave tailoring business, which was his vocation, because it caused a strain on his eyes, and to take a less arduous job. The ophthalmologist couldn't find anything radically wrong with the fundus, the part opposite the pupils of his eyes, and thought the difficulty might be emotional. This young man was blaming his work and the result and strain on his eyes caused by sewing all day. He went to a psychic and she made a chart for him. She said the planets are against you. Mars is square your sun, and so forth. And it frightened the life out of him. He thought the stars were against him now. Though trouble was, it's not the stars. It's that we ourselves believe that we are underlings. The real cause of his eye trouble was that he wanted to exclude his wife from his world. He said she was a nag. He hated to go home. But the trouble was within himself. Among his frequent expressions to me were, "I hate the sight of her. I can't stand to look at her. But I can't see my way out because I have 2 children and they need her. They won't give me a divorce and I want the children. His subconscious mind accepted his requests, these feelings and statements, and proceeded to respond by occluding his vision so that eventually he wouldn't be able to see. It had nothing to do with the planets, nothing to do with the tailoring business, nothing to do with the atmosphere. You don't give power to external things. You give power to the Almighty that's within you, omnipotent, supreme. There is nothing to oppose it, challenge it, thwart it, or vitiate it. You don't make a created thing a cause. That's why the whole world believes a lie. I got this man and his wife together and explained the workings of the mind. She cooperated by ceasing to nag. They began to pray together, seeing God in each other. They also began to speak to one another kindly and lovingly. Moreover, they prayed every night and morning, alternating several selected psalms, the 23rd, 27th, 46th, 91st, and 100th psalms. The psalms are songs of God with meditations from quiet moments with God, a book of mind containing 60 special prayers. In a month's time, his vision was back to normal. The ophthalmologist congratulated him. This man was certainly lying to himself by blaming his environment and his job, and when all the time the true cause was in his destructive negative emotions. Disease means a lack of peace, a lack of ease. Disease is of the mind. Many people think disease is out there, that the body catches disease. That's why the world believes a lie. All disease is of the mind. Nothing happens in the body except what first happens in the mind. The late Dr. Flanders Dunbar, a distinguished authority on psychosomatic medicine, was a medical doctor and a psychiatrist, and she also held degrees in religion. She discovered that a number of people were sick because of false religious beliefs. I had a chat with a man who had been taking sedatives and observing a special diet for colitis, from which he had suffered for several years. He was lying to himself as he blamed heredity and diet as the cause. Colitis runs in my family. My grandmother and my mother had it also. He said, I'm sure the food I eat has something to do with my trouble. I pointed out to this man that Dr. Dunbar said that a number of cases of colitis in a New York hospital showed that men were tied to their mothers and had never been away from their mothers for more than 30 days in their whole lives. None of these men were married, and the onset of their colitis was associated with the conflict between the mother and the desire for marriage. The man had a similar conflict, plus a deep-seated resentment of his mother, who seemed to criticize and find fault with every girl he brought to their house as a prospective bride. It had nothing to do with heredity. It had nothing to do with diet. I found that he was deeply in love with a spiritual-minded young woman, but hesitated to marry her lest he offend and disturb his mother. His eventual solution was simple. He came to a decision to marry, bought a home for his bride, and broke the umbilical cord once and for all. He radiated love and goodwill to his mother and wished for all the blessings of heaven. But he informed her that his wife now came first in his life. His ulcerative colitis cleared up miraculously in a few weeks. He had been deceiving himself for several years, failing to see that the cause of his sickness was purely emotional due to the poisoned pocket of resentment in the crevices of his soul. This man did not deliberately give himself colitis. His trouble came from the accumulation of his negative and destructive thinking. What we need is spiritual food. You can eat the best food in the world and get up hungry from the table, hungry for love or peace or harmony. Don't you know that people eat the choicest food in the world? They have all the vitamins and minerals, and still they die because of negative, destructive emotions. The negative emotions will turn that food you eat into poison. You need the bread of heaven, the bread of peace, and the harmony and of love. Lord, evermore, give us this bread. Because the subconscious mind is a law. It arranges all the deposited thoughts into a complex pattern. These subconscious patterns are not only the cause of all ills, but also the cause of our successes and triumphant achievements. The great lie is that the average man is constantly attributing causation outside himself. He blames conditions, environments, and circumstances. Sometimes he blames God, but all his difficulties are caused by mental patterns and beliefs lodged in his subconscious mind. The great lie, in essence, is the beliefs in material causation. You will constantly hear people claim that material circumstances are the source of their difficulties, trials, and tribulations. But that isn't the thing they believe in. If you believe in a shrine, it isn't the shrine. It's your belief. It has nothing to do with the shrine. If you think that if you bathe in a certain water, you're going to be healed, it has nothing to do with the water. Analyze the water. It's the same water as in your home. It's the belief, not the thing believed in. Belief is living in the state of meaning, to be alive to something, to accept something as true. So the object of your faith, be it true or false, will give results. Some people will say, well, if I touch the bone of that saint, I get a healing. So if somebody steals that bone and they put a dog's bone there, and that person comes and thinks it's still the saint's bone, he'll get results. But not because of the bone. It's a dog's bone. Because of his belief. You can call it blind belief, the belief in the subconscious response. That is a simple law of life. Why people don't understand that today is beyond my imagination. You will constantly hear people say that circumstances, conditions, and all that are the source of their problems, as are other people. This is a lie of major importance. It must be utterly and completely refuted. Talking with a woman some years ago, I learned her mother had a serious illness. She said her mother was a splendid Christian. Most people don't know what that word means. That she was kind-hearted, religious, and most generous. Why didn't God do something for her? Such a question illustrates perfectly the great lie that affects many people. The law of life is the law of belief. We demonstrated what we believe. You can believe a lie too. You know, whatever we sow in our subconscious mind, we shall reap. If we sow thoughts of sickness, fear, resentment, and enmity, we shall reap these things. To sow a thought biblically speaking means to accept it wholeheartedly. It is our deep-seated beliefs that we demonstrate, what you really believe in your heart. This woman and her mother were completely deceived in that both of them believed that sickness was independent of the mind, that it had nothing to do with the thinking process. That's the great lie that Quimby was talking about, that the whole world believes in, that sickness is out there somewhere, something they catch that's too stupid for words. Her mother had a bad heart condition and believed she could not be cured. That was a real belief, and so naturally she couldn't be healed. There are no incurable diseases. There are only incurable people. There are those who believe they cannot be healed, and according to their belief, it is done unto them. Her mother made excellent progress as she learned the law of life, as she ceased to be under the spell of the great lie that her heart is a material object with laws of its own, independent of her thinking. She now believes her body is subject to her thoughts and feelings. As she changes her mind, so she will change her body. She's no longer that way. She knows how to pray, prays regularly and systematically, knowing that an infinite healing presence is flowing through her as the beauty of wholeness, vitality, and strength. That God's love dwells in her mind and body. She realized that sickness has no power beyond what she gives it in her own thoughts, and she found herself healed. When trouble of any kind comes, look upon it as nature's signal that you are thinking wrongly in that direction. Then change your thought and keep it changed. I've heard this expression, what I have done to deserve this. I was asked this by a young man who added, I have never done anything wrong. The explanation is the cure, as Quimby said in 1847. I proceeded to point out to this young man that all our experiences are the result of our subconscious beliefs and assumptions. No matter what happens in your life, it is simply an outpouring of your subconscious mind. Out of the heart are the issues of life. The heart means your subconscious mind in Hebrew symbolism. All experiences, conditions, and events are the true experience, are the mathematical reproduction of subconscious patterns, of subconscious beliefs and conditioning. In other words, all the experiences, conditions, and events of our lives are the result of the totality of our beliefs. Moreover, all of us have many beliefs and ideas which we have long since forgotten, perhaps going back to childhood, hidden in the deeper recesses of our subconscious mind. All our beliefs and tendencies which we were born are still with us, and they have power to manifest in and influence our lives. For example, if you believe that sitting near a fan will give you a stiff neck, your subconscious mind will see to it that you get a stiff neck. Not because of the fan, which represents innocuous molecules of energy oscillating at a higher frequency, but because of your erroneous belief. I've seen people in India operate working under a fan all day, and it has no effect upon them. The fan is harmless. Surely you don't say, the fan gives you a stiff neck, it's molecules moving in space. If you're afraid that you'll catch a cold because someone sneezes, your fear is a movement of your own mind, which creates what you expect, fear, and believe. Others in the office don't get a cold. When the virus comes around, there are many men and women in your office and your factory who never get it. They don't believe in it, they believe in health. If you believe to be in a warm room and you go out into the cool atmosphere, nature may cause you to sneeze. That's nature's way of bringing about a balance and equilibrium in your body. The sneeze is a blessing. It's a benediction. Many, however, fear that they are now catching a cold, not knowing it is the creative power of their own thought that caused the cold. The young man wondered what he'd done to deserve such trouble. He confessed to me that he had bought an astrology magazine that morning, and it said there was great danger of an automobile accident and to be very careful. He said that he was charged with fear and shook all over when he read it. He didn't want to drive that day, but he had to go for an audition, which was very important, and the only way was by car. He had 3 crashes that same day, injuring one man seriously. He was suffering from shock himself and also received some contusions and lacerations. His car was badly damaged. Job said, "What I greatly feared has come upon me." It had nothing to do with the stars or Mercury and Venus and Harmony and Saturn. They're all molecules moving in space like the Earth. There's nothing evil in this universe. God pronounced everything good and very good. Why should we have the effrontery, the audacity, the impertinence to pronounce certain things evil when God pronounced them good and very good? Nothing good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. His great fear brought on these incidents, thoughts that were emotionalized and dramatized into experience by the subconscious mind. His subconscious mind took his great fear as a request and manifested it on the screen of space. What we sow, we shall surely reap. There's only one power. That is the spirit within you. You call it consciousness, which is the way you think, feel, and believe, which you give mental consent to. There's no other power, cause, or substance in the universe. I gave this man a prayer to use regularly and elaborated on the point that if he filled his mind with these great truths, his subconscious mind would accept them accordingly. He would be under a subconscious compulsion to drive harmoniously and peacefully, and nothing would ever happen to him again. I suggested that he use the prayer regularly and systematically until it became a part of him, just like an apple becomes your bloodstream. The same way you learn to walk, to swim, to dance, or play the piano, or type. You repeat a thought pattern, act again and again. After a while, it is second nature, an automatic response of your deeper mind to your conscious mind, thinking and acting. That is prayer. When you type, you're praying. When you drive a car, you're praying. You're conforming to principles. The wheels have to be round. The gas won't drive the car. It has to change its consistency and become a vapor. Likewise, in order for your world to change, you have to change your mind. You can't go on thinking the same old way. In order to begin to think in a new way, you have to get some new ideas. You have to find out about the laws of the mind. You have to get a reason for your new thinking, and therefore you begin to think in whatsoever things that are lovely, noble, and godlike. You realize your thoughts are creative. Whatever you impress into the subconscious, good or bad, is expressed, and therefore you begin to have a healthy, reverent, wholesome respect for your thoughts. There's a reason for your thinking then. So this man began to affirm, this is God's car, his own car, it's God's idea. Of course it is. Where did it come from? It moves from point to point freely, joyously, and lovingly. God's wisdom guides this car in all its ways. God's order, symmetry, beauty govern the mechanism of this car at all times. God's holy presence blesses this car and all its occupants. The driver of this car is an ambassador of God. He's full of love and goodwill to all. God's peace, truth, and understanding always governs the driver. God directs all decisions, making the way straight, beautiful, and perfect. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon the driver, making all roads a highway for his God, a wonderful prayer. There are many people who blame the weather for their colds, aches, and pains, also for their depression, their melancholia. Also they say, if only for that fellow in the office, I'd be promoted. He is blocking my good. You're making a god of another person. That's a big lie. There's only one God. You will have no other gods before me. I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God. Jealous in the sense that you must not know another, because then your mind is double-minded. You're unstable. You're pressing up and down on the elevator. You don't know what you believe in. There's only one power, so you don't put another person on a pedestal and say, you're a new God I have to worship. You're blocking my good. Now, how on earth you can make any sense out of that? There's only one being, the infinite presence and power within you. Nothing to oppose that. It's omnipotence. Who created the world? None can stay his hand or say unto him, what doest thou? No one can oppose it, all-powerful, the ever-living one. Therefore, if you want a promotion, you say to yourself, Infinite Spirit opens up a new door for me when I express myself at the highest level, when I exercise my faculties at the highest degree, and I have them all within wonderful income assisted with integrity and honesty, the promotion is mine. Then you realize the power of the Almighty is backing you up. You go to the source. Stop believing in that big lie. The whole world believes a lie. The air is harmless. Stop polluting the atmosphere with strange notions, false doctrines, and weird beliefs. When people talk about pollution, you never hear them talk about the pollution of the mind with resentment, hostility, and anger and hate. You must learn the great truth that no person, situation, or condition causes you to be ill, unhappy, lonesome, or to suffer from pecuniary embarrassment. There is no use in blaming somebody else. There's no one to blame at all. The beliefs and impressions made in your subconscious mind cause all your experiences and events of your life. Someone can call you a skunk. Are you going to get angry and upset? Can't you say, God, sister, you have no power to disturb me today. God's peace fills your soul. Or you can say to yourself, God loves me and cares for me, and go on about your business. Can't you? Don't tell me that person has power to disturb you. If so, you're suffering from the great lie, the biggest lie of all time. The suggestions and statements of others have no power to disturb you. You know that very well, except you're a mental case. You can curse or bless. It's the movement of your own mind, and there's no law preventing you from saying God loves me and cares for me. You neutralize the negative thought or that angry thought. You make constructive energy out of it. You learn the great truth. No person, situation, or condition has any power to disturb you. Millions are suffering from the great lie because they are self-hypnotized by an accumulation of false ideas, beliefs, opinions, and sin's evidence. Your subconscious mind acts as law to manifest and portray the accumulative patterns that are dwelling in your deeper mind. Nothing happens by chance. Everything is pushed from behind, as Emerson said. Psychiatrists and psychologists and medical doctors delving and probing into your deeper mind have demonstrated that you're not aware of these inner patterns. Not having knowingly placed them there, many persons assume they do not have them. Then they establish alibis and excuses of all kinds to justify themselves. Quimby proved 100 years ago that the body moves as moved upon. The body acts as acted upon. It has no volition, no self-conscious intelligence, no activity of itself. The body doesn't catch disease. That's insanity. The body is characterized by inertia. You can play a body of waves of light, molecules moving at tremendous speed. You can play in your body a melody of God or a hymn of faith. The body doesn't care. It is characterized by inertia. It is an emotional disc upon which you play your emotions. If you sever a part of your body, as I explained to you previously, it can't suffer from a disease, it undergoes decomposition. I'd like to reiterate that because it's so true. Therefore, all disease takes place in the mind, and disease is a lack of ease, a lack of poise, a lack of peace. That's why you read in the Bible, he said, "Go in peace, thy faith hath made thee whole." Why in peace? Because their mind was in turmoil in 6s and 7s. They were emotionally disturbed, overwrought, maybe jealous, envious, hateful, whatever it might be. But they had no peace of mind. If they had peace of mind, they couldn't be sick. Don't you know this? It's impossible to have a healthy mind and a sick body. Mens sana in corpore sano. A healthy mind, a healthy body. Very simple, isn't it? The great lie operates from many angles. There are those who blame the devil for their problems, but there's no such being. You know what the Hebrews give that title for? It means the eye. For the eye slays a fact. Your eye deceives you. The earth moves around the sun, or the earth is flat. Your eye deceives you, so they call the devil the eye. They also call it laughter, mirth, because there's no such being. They say the devil has gone upside down. The morbid, twisted, distorted concept that people have of God of love, the pure, impure. There's only one power. There can't be 2 or 3 or 1,000. Just one. That is the way of all truth. Devil, evil, E-V-I-L. Spell it backwards, L-I-V-E. If you're living life backwards, that is your evil or your devil. In Hebrew, Sata, Satan in the book of Job means to slip, to err, to deviate from the truth. Surely, that is your devil when you deviate from the truth, when you misuse the law. It's a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation of life. Wherever the universal presence and power diversifies itself, it limits itself. So we see through a glass darkly. Your misunderstanding is the only devil there is. Or you can call it ignorance, another word for it. Buddha called it ignorance. It means living life backwards. Spell live backwards, and that's what you have. The ancient Hebrew mystics said, the devil is one who lies about God, a slanderer. Those slanderers tell lies about the truths or the infinite. God and evil are simply the movements of your mind relative to the living spirit within you, which is God. The forces of nature are not evil. It depends entirely on the use we make of the elements of nature and the forces within us. Whether we have a constructive or a negative reaction, the great lie is to enthrone the idea in our mind that things, conditions, and phenomena are the determining causes of your misery, suffering, and misfortune. It's the biggest lie of all time. There is no one to change but yourself, and you are your own savior. To think that some man is going to save you is the biggest lie in the world, because your Bible tells you point blank, I rejoice in God, my Savior. There's only one God. There can't be 2 gods or 2 powers. It's impossible spiritually, mentally, and any other way. I say you're gods, and all your sons are the Most High. Everybody is a son of God. We're all expressions of the one being, the one progenitor. So stop giving power to people, conditions, and events. A banker said to me one time that members of his staff were out due to a viral infection, that he was afraid of catching it as well. He wanted to know how to protect himself. I told him that he was afraid of an invisible virus that he couldn't see, that had no power over him. I pointed out he was suggesting to himself that he might be liable to the infection, that the suggestions and statements of others had no power to create the things they suggested. The power is in you, the movement of your own thought. Choose ye this day whom ye will serve. Hold before you this day a blessing and a curse, a blessing if you obey the law, a curse if you disobey. The suggestions of others are powerless. I told him to reject the suggestion of infection completely, that the creative action is always of his own thought and feeling. I also pointed out that nothing can happen to him except through the creative power of his own mind. The others therefore had no power. He affirmed frequently as follows, I and my Father are one. I live now and have my being in God. God lives, moves, and has his being in me. God can't be sick. The Spirit was never hurt nor wounded. What is true of God is true of me. God can't be sick. Therefore, I can't be sick. I am all health. God is my health. Health is mine, joy is mine, peace is mine. I feel wonderful. You can rest assured he had no flu. You're in charge of your own mind. You have the wonderful opportunity to affirm that God's peace and love fills your heart, your mind, and your whole being. The power is always in you, not in the other. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. I am the Lord. That is my name. My glory you shall not give to another, neither shall you give my praise. I am the Lord, and there is none else. From the rising of the sun to the setting of the same, there is none else. When you say I am, you are announcing the presence and power of God within yourself. Pure being, life awareness, it's the only presence, power, cause, and substance. The big lie is to give power to any person, place, or thing, germ, circumstance, or condition. Then you're no longer loving the one, the beautiful, and the good. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Cease giving power and prerogatives to people, conditions, and events that have no power. Cease looking upon matter as evil or the world as evil. Matter and spirit are one. Matter is the lowest degree of spirit, and spirit is the highest degree of matter. Matter and invisible energy are one. Scientists informing us that energy and matter are interchangeable. Energy and matter are one. This is why thoughts are things. Thought is cause. The manifestation is the effect. There is a wonderful prayer, and prayer changes things. It changes the person who prays. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? This one verse of the 27th Psalm gives you personal freedom from all fear. It reveals to you the source of all power, strength, and wisdom. It enables you to reject the power of externals. It takes the burden off your shoulders, sets you on the high road to peace of mind, health, and happiness. The Lord is the presence of God, the I am within you. Given to you in the 3rd book of Exodus, the Lord is your own consciousness, your own awareness, your own life principle, your state of consciousness, the way you think, feel, believe, and the meaning behind your belief. God in the midst of you is guiding you now. His peace fills your soul. God's love saturates you and your whole being. I am the Lord that healeth thee. I am the Lord thy God. I will come and heal thee. God be with you. And this concludes this glorious lecture, All the World Believes a Lie. What a simple yet powerful lecture, and it reminds me so much of the power of your conscious mind. Murphy does a great job of integrating stories that reflect many of his lessons that he gives, and I find it absolutely fascinating that he visited Dr. Frankl. Definitely read the book Man's Search for Meaning. When he was talking about Auschwitz and the search for meaning, I'm just fascinated. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall with Dr. Frankl and Dr. Murphy in the same room. What a wonderful thing. There's some other cool stories that are here, some great lines, some great ideas. Everything that's happening in your world is coming from within. It's easy for the scientific mind to take over and say, oh, this causes that. But in reality, all of it is within. I still continually need to learn this lesson. I continually need to remind myself there is a big lie, that I'm sick because I ate wrong, or I'm sick because of some virus that maybe I got inflicted with. Who knows? Anything that happens is coming from my subconscious mind. That is the true source of all that heals and hurts me. Murphy goes after astrology a little bit, just like Neville Goddard in this one. The idea is if you believe the stars are against you, then it will happen. It is creative, just like they talk about in reality transurfing in the chapter on the mirror makers. If somebody tells you that Mercury's in retrograde and Saturn's in a certain place, that you're in big trouble, that you better stay home or whatever it is, it's causative. Just like any system that is predictive based on a classification or category of who you are, and predictive in some way based on outside forces in any way, Even if the system sounds freaking great, it's denying that you are the source. Yeah, that stuff might have effects, but if you are the source of all that is, it does not matter. You can eat whatever you want. You can change the weather. All things around you are coming from within. Now, this is a hard lesson to learn. It takes a long time, and there are patterns in our subconscious that we're constantly becoming aware of. It's interesting, he mentions Quimby, and Quimby found that a lot of people were sick because they went to church. They would feel guilty after they went to church. Their infection was in church. They were given a guilt complex, and the fear from church made them sick. How many people have gotten sick from going to church because they started feeling guilty about something they did? I just find that funny, and it's true. Many of the things that we suffer from are fears and emotions that are actualizing within our bodies into diseases and sickness and so much more. So if you walk away from this with anything, just always remind yourself that you are the source, and that is the key. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. Check out my art at newearth.art, and welcome to The Reality Revolution.